Good morning. I hope that you're all having a great morning. This is our sixth tea time together, so I hope you have your hot beverage. And this week I am going to be talking to you about crafts because that's been kind of my theme for the week and I've been enjoying it, and I figured why not cap it off with the video post, and then next week I'll talk about something else. I've been really enjoying my crafting lately, feeling inspired by it, and if you are inspired by crafts, whether it be knitting or crocheting, which is what I personally am familiar with, or with something else, another craft altogether, when this video is done, I hope that you will write in and let us all know what it is that you enjoy and tell us about your journey. So I love personal stories. I love hearing about how people got started doing interesting things to them. And so write it and let us know how you got started and what you're working on now. And if you blog or in any way write about your craft, let us know how we can find that. But as for me personally, I started as a crocheter. And I was a teenager, and my mom made all of these ripple afghans, single crochet, up and down, up and down, up and down. And she would mix in colors. I remember she made like a dozen of these Christmas afghans one year. Well, she didn't make them in 1 year, I should say. She wanted to, and this got spread out over the course of 10 years, which is sometimes the way that these projects go. But she taught me how to make those afghans, and so I made a lot of afghans when I was a teenager. I really enjoyed that, and I eventually wanted to learn how to make other things. So I learned some other crochet stitches so that I was able to make slightly different afghans. I didn't leave my safety net of afghans for quite a while. And then I, tried scarves and things like that. Not that much different from afghans, I will grant. And then I kind of put it away for a while when I was in college and graduate school, and in my 20s. I just didn't feel that crafty bug. But later, so now we're looking at like 10 years-ish removed, and I was, married and expecting my first child, and so I was nesting. I was very nesty when I was pregnant. And so, I'm pregnant and I'm looking around thinking I need to do something with my hands. And so once I had organized the kitchen cupboards and gotten the nursery ready, I decided to crochet a blanket. And I thought, maybe pull that out again. And so I figured out how to, the stitches again, and went and bought some yarn and started making Henry a ripple afghan, which I didn't finish, and then forgot about when I had a newborn and had no time. And when he was about 2 years old, and this is about the same time that I started belly dancing. So go back, and if you haven't already, and watch episodes 4 and 5 of this Tea Time series, and I'll talk about my dance journey. It was about the same exact time when Henry was about 2 that I obviously had a creative itch, and I thought, I'm going to go up into the attic and find that afghan remnant, and I want to finish that. I'm just in the mood to crochet. So I got it back out and tried to finish it, and I did. And while I was working on it, I thought, I'm enjoying this again. Maybe I should learn how to do other things. So maybe I could make a hat. So, I bought a leaflet, and I went to Joann, got some yarn, and, picked up some books and taught myself how to, do a couple of even newer stitches to me, like front and back post stitches. And I made a hat. It didn't really fit all that good, but I made it, and I was proud of it. And so then I, continued on this journey. And in the meantime, I found some women that I work with here at the library who are knitters, and they invited me to join them for lunch, and they would get together and knit, and I would crochet. And that really was a huge inspiration to me, because then I had something every day. I was like, all right, I'm going to be working on such and such project. And so I kept on with my crocheting. And I wanted to make socks. And my first attempt at a crocheted sock didn't go very well. I remember somebody looked at what I was working on, and she's like, oh, is that a baby hat? It was big for a sock, right? I mean, I know babies have little heads, teeny tiny, cute, very good smelling little heads, but I would think you will agree that those are bigger than your feet. So the sock, no, not so good. And so I thought, I should learn how to knit, because knitted fabric is so much more flexible and forgiving than crocheted fabric. And I knew my friends would teach me how to knit. But I'm kind of a structured person. I'm sure you're already quite aware of this. And so I thought I'd like to take a class. And so people ask me this all the time, like, how can I learn how to knit or crochet? 2 things. One is Joann Fabrics, your local craft store, Michael's. They have classes. couple times a year, they'll advertise and they'll have an intro class for different things, knitting, crocheting, quilting, and then they'll have usually a more advanced class, like making a specific garment, so you're learning a new stitch, something like that. And so I took 2 of those. I took their intro to knitting, and then sometime after that, I took a baby hat class so that I could learn how to knit in the round, because that's a different thing altogether. And I loved it. It was great. So I learned how to knit. But the second place, before I move on, where you can learn is your local yarn shop. So if you don't have one of those big craft stores near you, but you have a small store that sells yarn, go in and ask the guy or gal that owns it if they have classes. They almost certainly do. Or like I know a place near me has like a drop-in. You can just drop in and they'll work with you, for an hour. To show you how to knit or crochet. And so that's the other spot. And usually that's a way to meet people, make these connections within a crafting little community, and that will spur you on to finish your projects, which I really, really love and enjoy. And of course, it's a social outlet for you. Very wonderful. And support, if you're having a problem, like I dropped a stitch, or, now it says that I need to do short rows and I don't know how to do that. That's how you can learn, besides YouTube, which is also wonderful, I find. But having in-person friendly help, there's just no substitute for that. So, so I learned how to knit, and I learned how to knit in the round so I could also make socks. And it just went from there. Now I make all kinds of things. Sometimes they turn out good, sometimes they don't. But it's always fun, I make socks. I finished a sweater last night. It actually fits. So that was a success. I made Mike a sweater a couple of years ago, and it was in different pieces because it was a cardigan. So you had a front panel, 2 front panels, a back panel, and like a button band. And I measured everything very carefully. I was so bored with it because it was just plain stockinette. So you're like knitting across and then purling back. And it was just plain navy blue because that's what my husband wanted. And so I was sick to death of navy blue stockinette stitch because it took me months and months and months to finish. And so I carefully measured all for love, right? All for love in sacramental marriage. And so I measured all my pieces so carefully. And after like a year, I have this thing finished, like a Christmas after I had said I would have it finished. And I go to seam it up, and one of the panels was a different length than all of the other pieces. And that was not a pretty moment when I made that realization. But I went and consulted with my knitting group. Okay, so before you rip something off of your needles and toss it into the garbage can, which I have done, you should tuck it into your knitting bag and just pretend it's not there for a little while. And then I just, put it in a bag, kind of like when you pick up your dog's poop, right? It's like, I brought it in. And I brought it in my knitting group and I said, please tell me what to do with this, because, I don't know what to do, because it's all the pieces are different lengths, and how am I going to make this look normal? And so they suggested that I block the pieces, which means to wet them. It was wool, and so wool is very pliable when it's wet. And then I could stretch the pieces that were shorter out longer, and then I could seam them up, and it looked like I meant for that to happen. It looked totally normal, so yay! But it was a painful experience at the time, right? And that's going to happen. But when you have your support network, all is good. And it's always wonderful and fun. And so now, who is our patron saint for crafty things? I talked about St. Catherine of Bologna yesterday in my Catholic Note post. She's the patron saint of artists, which I think applies. But I also learned that we have a patron saint for weavers and wool combers, which is something I believe in the process of spinning wool. I've never done that, but that's what I think it is. And that guy is St. Blaise. This is Henry's St. Blaise. He's from St. Luke's Brush on Etsy, who a wonderfully talented artist paints these wood dolls. And you can see that he's got his candles because he blesses our throat as well. That's one of his other patronages. So he's holding his candles for every February 2nd, and you can see he has a wool comb. I kind of love that. So St. Blaise, he has his name down here. I highly recommend this shop, St. Luke's Brush on Etsy. And then Anne also has the St. Blaise, because we, add to our collection every year. This is from Saintly Silver on Etsy. He's called a Saint Softie. She's littler and she likes to cuddle them in bed. So this is her St. Blaise. He's got his candles, and he has a little prayer on the back. These are lovely. And the name of the shop again is Saintly Silver on Etsy. So we have St. Blaise, we have St. Catherine. Life is grand. And we're all friends here in our little community. And so I hope that you'll write in and tell me about what crafts you enjoy, or maybe you don't craft, but somebody that you love does. Maybe it was your mom, maybe it's your husband or wife, or whatever it is, one of your good friends. And so tell me about, them and what they make, and just write in and we'll have a nice conversation. And if you ever need any help, I've helped my friend Stephanie recently with a sock over Google Hangout. So, that's always a possibility. If you need help with something, that's what I'm here for. So maybe I could help you out via a video chat if that is ever a possibility. We'll see. But I'm going to wrap this up. I hope that you guys all have a wonderful weekend. 4th of July here in the US. So I hope that you enjoy if you're celebrating. And I will talk to you all next week. Bye.